Hello and welcome to episode 43 of the LiveFitNow Podcast. My name is Vicki Brown and I am your host. I hope you are well today and you have had a wonderful week. Today is another conversation with a very interesting person. She is a meditation coach and has built a meditation community, and she shares her very personal journey to how she got to where she is today. So without further ado, here's the conversation. My guest today describes herself as having a ninja power. More on this later, I'm sure. And that power is to harness the power of meditation to become calm, confident, and clear, guiding those she works with to a more rich, meaningful, and engaging life that can be lived wholeheartedly. She founded be.modern meditation, and her name is Laura Coleman. Welcome to the LiveFitNow podcast, Laura. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you, and it's great to be here.
Oh, fantastic. And I always love to start this conversation by allowing you to introduce yourself to my audience. Like, what is your background? Why do you specialize in meditation?
Yeah, great question. Well, for me, it all started, about 7 years ago now. I sat down and I had a journal in front of me. I wasn't much of a journal writer, but I found myself writing the words, "I am nothing." And it was a real shock to the system. And I remember, and I can still really vividly remember sitting there and actually having tears running down my face and just realizing that I was feeling that way. You know, I was feeling like there was that I had nothing to contribute. And externally at that time, anybody who knew me would not have believed that. You know, I was living overseas in Melbourne. I had 2 young children, but I was project managing a house build. I was volunteering for a charity. I was really involved at school, had a busy, active social life, so externally, I looked fine. I looked great. I was living my best life. But internally, it was a really different experience. And every day I was really struggling with anxiety, with overthinking. And, even small things felt like a real struggle. And I suppose I just reached that tipping point of trying to hold that in was too much. And writing those words, I guess, was a bit of a catalyst of something needs to give, because either it's true and how awful is that, or it's not true and how awful is I feel that way. And I stumbled across meditation, and it wasn't a magic bullet that I started to meditate and then ta-da, everything was fixed. But it was like the scaffolding, really, that allowed me to change how I experienced every minute of my life, so that I could actually come to terms with whatever I was experiencing and manage it differently and feel different. And that then led me to study psychology and mindfulness, and really kind of following a breadcrumb trail, really, of and then ultimately coming back full circle to this understanding, I suppose, that fundamental to all of the change I'd gone through was this change in my way of being aware in my world and in my life. And that's what I then became really passionate about sharing. So the program I've developed at B is all about using meditation to ditch the stress and overwhelm, but ultimately so that you can build a meaningful life. So that's really why I'm so passionate about it. And I'm a real down-to-earth person. I'm very type A, busy, go kind of person, probably not your very typical meditation teacher. And so for me, I really wanted to make meditation feel attainable and also something that could be sustainable. And that's really the philosophy behind everything I do, is empowering people to make it work in their life, no matter what it looks like.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting how it's developed. And I think when something impacts you so powerfully, you do get really passionate about it, don't you? And you realize how much of an impact it can have. I kind of want to step it back to basics as well. Like, what is meditation? In the basic sense of the word,
the most basic sense. Well, in many ways, it's just a form of brain training. Actually, it's a way of training. And I know you obviously do a lot of fitness, so it's great. I use a lot of fitness analogies, which is quite useful in this context, because essentially you're just training your mind to handle stress differently. And so you're changing your relationship to stress. So at its core, all you're really doing is switching out of the stress response into the relaxation response. And now it doesn't necessarily mean that it feels relaxing. Now I think probably one of the biggest barriers people have with meditation is it can feel crap, like you close your eyes and there are loads of thoughts and you think, well, this isn't what I'm supposed to be experiencing. It's supposed to be calm and beautiful and still. And, sometimes it is, but equally, even for me now, and I've meditated for thousands of hours, I still have meditations that are very thought filled and that I am, but essentially all I'm doing is just training my mind to come back. So the only thing I'm doing in meditation is just noticing when my mind's wandered and coming back. So it's like building it's like a bicep curl for the brain.
I like that. Love that analogy. And how often do you personally meditate? And then what is the difference between what you'd encourage someone that is completely new to meditation?
So my journey with meditation started. So I started with a course locally to where I lived, and did a bit of headspace dabbling. And so I learned a type of meditation where you meditated twice a day for 20 minutes. Now I don't practice that type of meditation anymore, but I still kind of have that discipline really of I generally will meditate twice a day for around 20 minutes. But equally, sometimes it might be a 5 minutes here, a 10 minutes there, and it might be much more of micro moments through the day. And for me now, I'm much more flexible around in terms of what type of meditation I practice as well. So it's more like in the same way you might with your body think to yourself, right, I need to build some strength in my arms, or I haven't done much work on my legs recently, or I feel like I really need a good burnout, or you learn to read your body. And it's the same with your mind. So you learn, what do I need? Do I need a really nourishing self-compassionate practice today, or do I need a real attention focused practice that helps my mind to still? And so my practice it's very adaptable and very adaptive. And in terms of how that compares to somebody who's just starting, what I tend to do is I believe in and I'd be interested to see how you feel about this with fitness, is that it's about creating something that is the most easy thing you can. So give yourself a commitment of as little as 5 minutes a day. And if you do more than that, great. But your minimum commitment to yourself is 5 minutes. And we all have 5 minutes, and actually, if you look through your day at when do I tend to scroll on my phone, those are the times we can target and say, right, I can fit that into my day already. And then you almost scaffold yourself to be able to meditate for longer. And it just naturally happens.
Yeah, I can agree with you more. In fact, with anything in life, I think when we're trying to build habits, so often I think we can set the bar too high and just too big a challenge. Like, if you're trying to find half an hour a day, it's going to be very easy not to find it. But as you say, 5 minutes is so attainable, and you're so much more likely to do more, at least some days. I think that's what makes it so powerful, and you don't feel like a failure. I think it's really important when you are trying to build habits to not feel like you failed. Whereas doing something that's very small, you're much more likely to tick it off and you feel good. And then the better you feel for doing it, the more likely you are to keep doing it, because it's like a reward system rather than I can't do that because I never managed to fit it in. And it's just amazing how powerful it becomes, I think, when you can put that spin on it.
Yeah, totally. And just like exercise, actually, it's actually the regularity of your practice that's more important. So, I think in the same way, you wouldn't go to the gym once every 6 weeks and expect to have a six pack. You're better off doing 20 sit-ups a day every day, and then you will get your six pack eventually, only you'll have done it in a sustainable way. And it's no different with training the mind.
No, consistency is so important. And do you recommend, or rather, is there a better time of day to meditate, or is it more about finding a time to do meditation?
So there's a Deepak Chopra quote that I love, and he says, the best meditation practice is the one you actually do. So yeah, there's no doubt that it can be really powerful to get up early before anyone else and do your practice and start your day with a really clear mind, and having sort of really noticed the conditions of your mind. But if you've got young children who are getting you up early, or you're someone that needs 6 snoozes on your alarm before you get out of bed, that's not going to be sustainable. So yeah, it might be for you. You have a routine already where you have a mid-afternoon cup of tea, so do it then. Or you might notice that you have an afternoon slump at 3 o'clock, and that would be the perfect time, because it can be really energizing when you do even a short meditation practice really energizes you. In fact, that's something I do if I have a long car journey. Remember those? That's it. You literally, it's like some research shows that 20 minutes of deep meditation is the equivalent of 4 hours deep sleep. So sometimes doing an afternoon meditation can be a great way to perk your energy up for the afternoon.
Yes, I guess it's just about finding that time slot that works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really is my fundamental message, is that find a meditation style, practice, teacher, whatever that works for you in your life exactly as it is. Don't expect yourself to, make these massive changes, because as we've already said, it's not sustainable.
No. And do you find that most people find it easier to listen to like a guided meditation rather than sort of read about it and then just try and make their mind quiet? Do they find it easier if they're simply listening along to someone like yourself, where they can just kind of take the pressure almost off themselves because someone else is telling them what they should be doing?
Generally, yes, that's generally my experience, is that having that voice, I suppose it's no different to, if you wanted to, you can do exercise in your home on your own, and that's, of course you can, it's easy. But actually, if you go to a gym class, or you go to then that structure's there, and you can relax into, okay, I'm already here, it's happening. So definitely it feels, for a lot of people, that's and you can gradually then build up to having more time in silence in your own mind, because there's definitely benefits to having sort of a silent element to your practice. But equally, for some people, they never do that. Some people, they will always use a guided practice, and I think that's the other thing, is that sometimes it can be a bit, I don't know if there's an equivalent with fitness. I guess maybe there is, but there's a sort of snobbery of like, that there's almost like, well, I'm not really a meditator until I'm meditating for an hour in silence, and and actually that's nonsense, really. Like, actually, not everyone needs to be an Olympic athlete to live a fit and healthy life. So that's why would our minds be any different?
I guess that's part of the evolving side of meditation, for people to have a deeper understanding of it, that it's so much bigger and more flexible than I think the perceived idea of it is. Because, as you say, I think, and I guess most people do, you have an idea of what something is, and until you've actually tried it, you don't realize. But it's such a broad spectrum, isn't there? There's so many ways you can approach it. And again, I guess it's coming back to realizing what you are like. Like, some people would prefer to just be able to shut the door, go really quiet, and that's their way of finding meditation, whereas someone might prefer to go for a walk and do it that way. So there are different approaches.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, to do that, draw that comparison to exercise. Like, so if the word meditation, as you say, feels like it's quite a narrow thing, but actually it's very similar to the word exercise. So, the word exercise, if I don't like running, it doesn't mean I wouldn't go, well, exercise isn't for me. I'd go, okay, that type of exercise isn't for me. But maybe I like frisbee throwing or something, maybe that's my sport. There's no, whilst there's kind of almost umbrellas of types of practice, there's like an infinite number of ways, because it's really a practice of attention, and paying attention in a special way to the present moment. And you can do that in as many ways as you want.
Yeah. And that's what's so exciting about it, really, isn't it? And I want to refer back to how I introduced you next. And that is your ninja power. So is your goal to turn us all into meditation ninjas?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing about with a ninja is that it's about kind of stealth. It's about kind of getting under and out of your own way. And so for me, there's such a journey with meditation. So at its most fundamental, I would just love everybody to know that even if they close their eyes for just a couple of minutes a day, or they use their attention in a certain way during activities in their day, they can massively impact the way their body's processing stress, and actually have an impact on their overall health and well-being. But equally, there's a whole journey that you can take with meditation that goes way beyond just, relaxation. You can actually get really in touch with what's actually important to you. You can change your relationship to your thoughts so that they don't have the power to yank you around. You can open up to emotions and difficulties in a way that allows you to move through them and move on from them and release them. And you can ultimately get in touch with what your real values are and what life you want to build. And all of that comes from cultivating the ability to be aware in your own mind and in your own body. And so for me, the exciting thing is that just like diving under the ocean, you can stay. Ultimately, we want everyone to come underneath the surface and realize that they don't need to be bashed around by the waves on the surface. But if they keep diving down, when you get to the stillness of the deep ocean, that's where the real magic is, if you like, of insight, intuition, and getting in touch with, I suppose, the fundamental essence of who you are.
Really powerful image. I really love that. And also, I wanted to come back to how you described your journey and how you were using journaling, and that was your trigger of wanting to get into this space. Had you been using journaling for a long time? Do you still use it, or has mindfulness and meditation really taken over from that, or has it become more of a tool to work together? That was a big question.
So journaling, yeah, it's a big question. Journaling has been a really powerful tool for me over time. And I don't tend to do it in a very structured way. I use it. There's a book called, Julia Cameron book called The Artist's Way, which is all about uncovering your creativity. And she has this morning pages technique where you just have to brain dump. The only rule is you're not allowed to stop writing for 3 pages and just whatever comes out. Now, that wasn't what I was doing at that point. At that point in time, when I wrote those, in a way, it wasn't even really journaling. I wasn't a journaler. It was just almost like these feelings were just bubbling out of me, and I just didn't know what to do with them. I had friends I could talk to, but it almost felt like it was a compulsion. I just needed to go and just write this out, and maybe some part of me needed to write that to make me see it, to actually to unlock it, to start that process. And I think for all of us, that's probably different. We all probably reach a point where the things that I guess that we're never going to change until the benefit, because ultimately the patterns of behavior we get stuck in are all about keeping us safe. There's a part of us that feels safe in, even if it's dysfunctional and it's not really working and it's unhealthy, something about it is keeping you safe. And until that becomes until the impact that it's having on the rest of your life becomes strong enough for you to break out of that, you stay stuck. So I think for everyone, it might be, it could be a relationship breakdown, it could be some challenge that comes up, it could be some life event, or it could just be, just the perfect storm, and you just happen to reach it. But I'm glad that I did have that rock bottom moment to come through the other side of it.
And it's so interesting because I've had many conversations, and most people do have that pivotal moment. They have something that they reach a point where they have to do something, and then it takes them down a whole new path. And it's so powerful to have experienced that as well, because again, as you say, you're not necessarily the most conventional of personality types for meditation, but I think that's fantastic because you're going to appeal to a person that sees themselves in you. And sometimes it really is about finding the right teacher for you, because I have spoken to people in the past that have tried it and they're just like, oh no, I just don't. I'm like, just try some different people, because there are so many different ways of connecting. And with all of, my job is the same. It's like, you're not going to connect with everyone. We are humans at the end of the day. And I think it's about finding the right connection for us. And therefore having that personal experience, I think, just really allows you to relate to people to help them move forward.
Yeah, totally. And I think almost in a way it's like, they say your vibe attracts your tribe, don't they? And I think I genuinely think there's somebody out there for all of us that's, to whether that's somebody to guide you or somebody for you to guide, there's we all have that special thing. And I think if you can cultivate a spirit of curiosity, I think that makes it easier, a sense of, oh, I wonder what I'm going to find out, rather than putting pressure on to, I think sometimes when we decide, I guess, I need to get fit, I need to eat better, I need to start meditating, it suddenly can become this job we've got to do, is to find the person. And it's like we put this we almost like squeeze the life out of it. And I'm totally guilty of this. I mean, you know, I'm total kind of like, you know, control freak planner, you know, of like, right, I just need to get a list and I can just sort it out, you know. And I think we can really easily add and bring that kind of energy to the work of ourselves. And that is what stifles us being able to find that right person. But, you know, it's a shift. It's learning to trust that you'll find the right person and that you just, you know, allow things to unfold. It's quite a shift from, especially in terms of our modern culture, which is all about drive, strive, make it happen.
Keep pushing. It's interesting. I think it's like we need to give ourselves the time and the space just to try things whilst we can. Like, I think quite often people wait to the point where they're at breaking point, where actually if you're not at that point, it's a really good time just to try lots of different things, practice these skills, and even perhaps if to start with, although I'm sure you would recommend to go straight into regular practice, but even if you just try meditation a few times, just to kind of get the idea of what it's about. And then there might be a time, a few months or a year down the line where you're like, I need that now. But you've already got that in your toolkit. Like you're aware of what it is, you know what it can do. And then I think it's easier to really deep dive into it. Do you think that's a potential way of approaching it?
I think definitely. I think if we come back to that ocean analogy, that, you know, it would be unlikely that if you're bobbing along on the surface, it would be unlikely that, you know, from your place with your head above the surface, that you'd look down and you think, yeah, I'm going to dive all the way down there, you know. But you might, you know, for a long time, you might just every now and again just dunk your head under and go, oh, okay, oh, that was okay. And then you might just do it for a bit longer. And then, you know, one day you just have a real yearning to see what's a bit deeper. And then you get a taste for it and you go, oh, I wonder if, you know, and again, I guess that's the allowing your natural curiosity. And I definitely think that for most people, probably, it's unusual for you to go straight from that might be interesting to deep dive. I mean, some people do. But that the deep dive, the instant deep dive, tends to come from I'm a little bit broken, or I'm feeling like I'm broken. Now, generally, we're never broken. We're just a bit lost. But I totally feel like we can get to a place where we feel like there's something wrong with us. And when we reconnect to ourselves, we realize, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. And this is exactly the journey I'm supposed to be having. But, you know, that's part of the journey.
Absolutely. Sometimes we're just feeling a bit of a muddle. And what do you find are the most common problems that people have in regards to meditation?
Oh, so there's four big ones. These are the four that mostly come up. So the first one is I don't have time. So, you know, it's like, yeah, I'd love to, but, you know, I have such a busy life, blah, blah, blah. And I totally get it, because we are all really busy, which is why I think knowing that a micro moment, a conscious micro moment. I have one client who, when she's at work, she just, when she goes to the toilet, she just takes an extra minute and just sits on the toilet, you know, and just pays attention, so that she's not having to find any extra time. So I think it's about reframing your time with that one. The second one is I can't stop thinking. You know, I close my eyes and my mind is just too busy. And for that one, and because it comes back to what you said earlier about we like to not feel like we're a failure at something. We like to feel like we're succeeding. And I think often people's perception of meditation is that successful meditation is a quiet mind and stillness and feeling really beautiful and calm. Now, in reality, a successful meditation is a meditation where you've noticed when you're distracted and you've come back, even if you've had to do that 100 times. And so when you know that the goal of meditation is not to calm your mind, because your mind's job is to think, you can let that go. And actually, ironically, as soon as you let go of the need to not think, your mind is able to start to settle. It's like having a snow globe that, you know, our minds are generally like a snow globe that's all shaken up, and we want it to still and be calm. Only our method of trying to make it calm is just to continually kind of, you know, agitate it. And of course, the snow can't settle. So just allow it and it'll settle on its own. The third most common one is it's not for me. It's a bit woo woo, like it's really not my thing. And that comes back to that idea that there's a whole spectrum. You've got at one end of the spectrum, you've got, I'm going to move up to the Himalayas and I'm going to spend time in the mountains with the monks. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got there's some practices that are very structured, like mindfulness-based stress reduction, and they're very protocoled, and this is how much you need to meditate for, and this is the exact procedure. And then I guess you've got everything in the middle. So I'm kind of in the middle, really. I kind of like to try and draw from both. And the final one that people have is, I just don't know how to do it. It's just, I don't really get it. Am I doing it right? And that's where, again, keeping it really simple. And I have a sort of free ninja mind skills for the modern world downloadable course that's literally like 4 short videos to get people meditating in less than 20 minutes so that they can get over that one, because that one is super easy to knock over when, with just a real simple reframe.
And how, following on from that, how do you know that you're meditating?
You're meditating if you show up. Like that's the thing, is that you're meditating if you decide that you're meditating, if bizarrely. So if I decide to go on a walk and I want to make my walk a meditation, there are different ways of doing that. So you can have a kind of mindfulness meditation walk where you're going, right, I'm going to be really present with this moment exactly as it is without judging it. That's essentially what mindfulness is. And I might decide to notice the feel of my feet on the floor. I might notice the sound of the birds and just notice what I'm noticing. And I might then observe that I'm having a thought, and then I go, oh, look, I'm having a thought. And then I come back to what am I noticing around me? And I'm just being really present. That's one way of doing a mindful walk. Another way of doing a mindful walk is to literally get into a space of I'm just walking, I'm walking. And then every time something distracts me, whether it's something I'm looking at or a thought, I'm just walking, and just come back to really almost like the rhythm of walking. And it's like almost like that rhythm is just carrying you. And you can even do a type of meditation practice where if you've got a particular problem you want to solve, or some thought or something that's just on your mind, you can actually choose to, right, I'm going to make that the focus of my meditation as I walk. And I'm going to, say I have a piece of work I'm trying to do, and I'm stuck on a particular chapter I'm writing or something. And I think, right, I want to solve that problem. What tends to happen if we're thinking about that on a walk, we start thinking about it, but then our mind goes, oh, hang on, did I need to send that email? And then our mind bounces to something else, and I go, oh yeah, I'm going to think about that. So actually we can use, like, I'm going to solve this problem, I'm going to work on this issue, I'm going to think about this thing. And every time I notice that I've been distracted from that and I'm actually thinking about what I'm going to make for lunch, I'm just going to come back to that problem. And again, we're still just training our attention. That's essentially all we're doing, is training our attention to be where we choose. And so anything can become a meditation.
That's the exciting part, really, isn't it? Just how easy it is to choose something that you want it to guide you towards. Do you think one of the easiest ways for people to start that is by using the senses, like choosing one of your senses and perhaps focusing on what you can either see, hear, smell, feel? Is that quite an easy way, I guess, for people to have a try?
It can be. I mean, everyone's very different. I mean, it can be. I mean, some people tuning into, because if you're in a really stressed state, for example, sometimes you can find that you are almost like hypervigilant in your environment, and that you are, that actually is not that you're not aware of the moment, you're too aware of the moment, but you're aware of, everything in your environment. It's too much. And so for that, if you're in that kind of state and your mind is almost like really heightened and you're a bit wired, sometimes kind of going, well, I'm going to tune into my hearing more. I've had clients who've experienced that that's almost too much, that they go, oh, that's where, whereas for some people, they're so lost in their head that they never think about their senses. And actually that's a beautiful practice for them to go, I'm just going to really expand my hearing, and just almost like I'm casting out a net and noticing what I can hear and allowing it to come back. And for them, it's like, whoa, I'm really hearing what's in my environment. Or I'm in the shower and I'm properly in the shower, I'm going to let myself really feel the shower on me. So it does depend a little bit on you and the sort of what you're currently going through, and that can change from minute to minute and moment to moment. So learning how to adapt it to what's the conditions in my mind right now is a really useful skill.
And I guess trying different environments is a great way of figuring out which environment works best. And as you mentioned earlier, it's probably one of those things that will evolve at different times. But again, I think perhaps people think they have to sit down on a pillow in a quiet room, but actually maybe sometimes do it in your bedroom, sometimes in the garden, sometimes on a walk, and just see how the different environments make you feel as well.
Definitely. And I think the advantage of that as well is that often, as nice as it can be to create a lovely ritual of like, I've got my special cushion and my blanket, I'm going to light my candle. It's a barrier when we're busy because we go, I don't have time to light my candle, get my cushion, get my blanket. And there's a bit of noise next door. And, and it becomes a reason why we can't do it. But the more portable we make it, I can be sitting on a bench at a train station meditating, or I can be, in my car waiting outside my kids' school and meditating. It normalizes it and it just makes it another part of what you do in your life. Yeah. And I'm sure exercise is probably quite similar.
Again, I think I completely agree. And I think there are so many rules and limitations put to so many things. And obviously there are things in life that need that, but actually from the impression I'm getting from you is meditation is not like that. And exercise definitely isn't like it either. Not for what most of us humans need. We actually just need to be moving our body and training our brain and exercising our brain, because essentially our muscles all need working, brain included. And if we keep them strong, we're much more likely to do that if we can be consistent. And that is something that is easily done. So I think having that flexibility is the most powerful thing to know, to then know that there are so many ways of approaching it. The rules aren't as strict as I think sometimes it's perceived.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's also knowing that there's always places to go. So, this, once you've trained this capacity to be aware in the moment, then it's about, how do I deal with, so I learn to be present, then how do I open up and allow myself to experience the full range of my feelings and know that I can handle that. And then learning how to not only experience what's going on, but then give yourself compassion and almost have developed kindness for yourself as well. So there's layers to it as well. That makes it constantly interesting as well.
Like a lifelong pursuit, isn't it, really? There's a question I like to ask everybody, and that is, are there any common myths linked to your industry that you would like to debunk?
Well, we've done a few there. But I think, if I had to say, if there's one thing, it would be that it doesn't have to feel calm and beautiful for it to be working. That is the number one, that in fact, if you think about, when you've gone to the gym and you've done a beast of a workout and, you think you're going to die, you're like, oh my God, this feels horrific. And afterwards, those are the ones that have built the most muscles. They're the ones that have taught your body and your mind that you are resilient, that you're capable, and that you can handle it. So, apply that principle to your mind.
I love that. And it is so true. And I think sometimes it's about pushing our own barriers to sometimes when it feels like it's not quite right. Doing it will make you more fearless, I think, because you're pushing through and realize that it can just feel different. It doesn't always have to feel good to be good. And in fact, sometimes the ones that are more uncomfortable is actually where we're really getting deep and doing the work internally.
Yeah. And what's also really interesting with the neuroscience is that actually what they've shown is that every meditation is building that muscle. So, you're actually developing your prefrontal cortex, which is that part of the brain just behind the forehead there, which is like your brain CAO, that ability to see the big picture and make considered decisions and emotionally regulate. That when with regular practice, you are the myelin layer, which is the layer that conducts signals, actually thickens. So you literally are building a muscle, and it also activates more across both hemispheres. So literally every time you meditate, you are literally building a muscle, and you down regulate the amygdala, which is like the alarm bell in the brain, and it reduces in size and in reactivity. So every time even if you close your eyes for 5 minutes, you can know, just like if you do reps of an exercise, it is making a difference. And I think that can be a big game changer for people to know that, it matters. It matters if you do it, and it will change, literally fundamentally change how your brain is structured.
And do you think if people are having, perhaps if they are struggling to get to sleep, or they're getting particularly stressed about something within their life, do you think it's a quite useful place to start if you can try and use that meditation around those normally stressful times, like perhaps before bed, or if you have a meeting, perhaps doing it in your lunch break so you feel more prepared for the thing in itself? Is that quite a possible way of starting to weave it into your life because you feel that you need that benefit?
It can definitely help. And there are different types of meditation that, so for example, at sleep time now, generally having a meditation practice tends to improve sleep just because of the way you're changing your body's processing of stress. But you can use it at the point of wanting to fall asleep to help relax the body. So that's a sort of slightly different style of meditation than the attention training. But definitely, yes, if you've got something stressful, changing, because when you're in a stressful situation, the big problem is that we can't stay in a responsive state. We go into a reactive state, and we can't choose, time speeds up, and it feels like there's no time between something happening and us having to do something. And it's that which creates more stress, because then we're like, oh my God, someone's going to call on me in this meeting, and I'm not going to know what to say, or something's going to happen and I won't know what to do, because we stop trusting that our brain, there'll be time for us to go, okay, let me work this out, let me make the right call. But what I will say is that I tend to find is that for lots of people actually, the time when you need it the most is the time when you're least likely to do it. It's almost like there's this weird sabotage button that says, life's going great. You go, yeah, I'm meditating. And then life hits the fan, and you go, and it's sort of everything drops off. But it's almost, it's a bit like stitching a parachute, really, that each time you meditate, you're kind of doing a little stitch. And so really what counts is when life throws you out the plane, you've built a big enough parachute. So if you've got a regular practice, then even if in those critical moments you don't feel like you can draw on it, or somehow you sabotage yourself, you have already built that capability there.
That's fantastic, because I think it's almost an added pressure if you do know how useful meditation is and you do it, and that happens, that you stop doing it when you feel that you should be, to know that actually you don't need to panic, you don't need to add that to your stress ball right now.
Yeah, don't add that to the things. Actually, yeah, exactly.
You've done the work, and it's still going to help you, even if you can't. Don't add it if you don't need, if you haven't got the capacity for it.
And you'll come back to it, because that's the thing, is you start to, particularly that feeling of space between something happening and you responding. That's probably one of the first tangible things that you go, that feels different. You're in a situation and something that would trigger you happens, whether that's a child refusing to put their shoes on, or somebody cutting you up in traffic. That happens, and there's this moment of like, oh, I would have gotten really angry and shouted at this moment, but I've managed to not. That's interesting. So, and once you've that, and we're kind of wired for sort of feeling good, and those moments feel good, and so you eat that dopamine hit that you get from that is going to keep you coming back. So don't worry if you stop, you fall off, you're going to come back. It's the same as, when you've reached a certain point in training your body, you know how it feels. So like right now, we're probably, a lot of us, eating the wrong food. We're eating stuff to comfort ourselves, maybe not moving as much as we would have liked, because we can't go the places we normally go, and but we'll come back to it. So just don't add that extra pressure, as you say.
Just allow yourself to evolve with what's facing you at the time. And I'd like to bring it back to what you've started. So Be Modern meditation, what made you start it, and what is your goal with it as a business?
Well, great question. So what I'd really like to do, so the reason I started it was I wanted to provide a vehicle for people to improve their lives, basically. And as it's evolved, what I'm really enjoying most of all is community. And so I'd really like to continue to build is a community of people who are making meditation a sustainable part of their life, and seeing the benefits and feeling the benefits, and then bringing them experiences and expertise from all sorts of experts in everything from, similar things to what I'm doing, but also things like, like I had recently hosted a Wim Hof breathing workshop, and so bringing people, because there is no, as I said right at the beginning, there's no one magic bullet. So whilst I know that meditation is this amazing scaffolding and foundation, it's not the only wellness practice. I'm never going to say to you, if you meditate, you're going to be just fine, because actually in reality, you need to find your own menu of unique, distinct practices. And so the more exposure you have to cool things, then the more you're going to build your toolkit in a way that's really interesting for you in your life, exactly as it is. So that's my vision, is to build a place where people know they can come and get support, community, and keep things interesting, so that they want to keep learning and evolving.
You're allowing them to be curious.
Yeah.
I love that. It's fantastic. And as we started this conversation before I hit record, it really is about empowering people, because we all have things available to us. Some of us just might not know what they are yet, but if we can open those doors and spark that interest, you might find the thing that really, really works for you right now. And that's what you need.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's not about me positioning myself as like this guru on the mountaintop telling you how to approach it. It's more that, I'm on my mountain, you're on your mountain, and I just have a different vantage point. Maybe I'm further ahead than some people just because of the experiences I've had, and I can help you with that. But ultimately, I just have a different vantage point, and we each have a different vantage point in each other's lives, and we can each support each other. And I think knowing that you're the only thing that matters is your mountain and your journey, and getting support from other people while you're on it.
I absolutely love that. Having community makes people so much stronger, but more than anything, just making things feel attainable. I think so often experts in any field really I think a lot of imposter syndrome starts to seep in at this point. So people want to feel like they know everything, and they kind of want to be put on a pedestal. But the problem is, as soon as you do that, I think people that have never approached whatever their topic is, it becomes more unattainable. And actually the key is to always make it attainable, because the truth is, it doesn't matter what we do. There was a time when we never did it, and we've all been beginners, and we've all been on that day one, that first time of walking in the gym, or the first time of trying meditation. We were there. We just are now years down the line of practice, and we just want to show you the door, because it's not a magical thing. We just started at day one, and we've got to where we are. And I think that's so important.
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. There's nothing fundamentally special about me and what I'm doing. It's just I'm just a little bit further down the line. That's all. Or I've got access to things that maybe other people don't. Just because of the experiences I've had, and sharing that is amazing.
But there are going to be people that click and connect with you, and that will be why you will open the door to that new practice for them. And
and that, and there'll be people that can't stand what I do, and that's okay too. There'll be people that like, where's the woo, and I do like a bit of woo woo as well, but I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and that's absolutely fine.
It's a powerful thing to accept, isn't it? Another question I like to ask people, and it's a big one, and you can go very much on business or you can take it broader, but what inspires you?
Oh, that is a big one. What inspires me? Do you know what inspires me actually is seeing that moment for people when things connect, that they suddenly realize that maybe, whether it's a state of being or growth that they thought they just believed was not for them, and that moment when they realize, oh, it is for me. That to me is just the most inspiring thing, and there's no limit for people once they unlock that, and that's hugely inspiring.
Absolutely. It's the thing that keeps the job exciting as well, doesn't it? Because that is a unique buzz with every single person.
Yeah, and I think it reminds you that it's never about you as the person guiding them, that it's always about their own unique journey. And so I have a program I take people through, and there's 7 pillars to that journey, and it's really interesting because different people, there's like an aha moment. Like there's usually one really big moment of like, whoa, that's really changed how I think about everything. But it's different for everyone. So, I remember, when I first sort of, developed the program and started working with clients with it, it really surprised me. I was like, oh, but that's really different to the last person, and it's that, and it's always evolving, which is really interesting.
I'm guessing obviously you spent a lot of time putting these programs together. Do you think that is an effective way for people that have perhaps never tried it before, or maybe just dabbled once or twice, to have something to follow along to for a period of time that really allows them to understand what's happening from different perspectives, to then, like you say, have your clicking, oh, okay, this makes sense to me. Whereas if you only do day 1, for example, you might not get that until day 14 or however long it is.
Yeah, so I as part of the reason I've just created a 21-day program that for exactly that reason, and each day people get a very small bite-sized digital video of some kind of element of either busting through the science, understanding what's going on in the brain or the body or whatever, or understanding what exactly meditation is or how to build a practice. And so through that 21-day journey, and that's what people have described to me, is that it's like gradually unlocking the pieces for them so that they can put it together in a way that makes sense to them, and with practices that then go along with it, so that it's then, okay, so I understand it now, and then they experience a practice and they go, oh, now I know it, and so I think having a structured journey is always helpful because it just gives you a bit of a roadmap, and then it's up to you where you take it. But I think it's definitely useful to have structure.
Yeah. I think humans generally do thrive off that. I think we're so used to it with how our education system works. We're kind of wired to do it that way. So I guess it's trying to find our own personal strengths and then be able to apply it, and that happens as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Just so my audience can get in touch with you if they want to, whereabouts can they find you, hopefully one day back in real life, but on the internet as well?
Yes, back in real life. Yeah. Well, a great place to start is my website, which is be.modern.meditation.com, and there people can download that, as I mentioned, that free Ninja Mind Skills training, so they can get started. And they can also read about the various programs that I offer. And I think there's just information there about meditation. I'm also on social media at be.modern meditation on Facebook and Instagram. So that's always a good place to connect. And I love connecting to people. And I also guide free meditations on a Monday morning, so people can sign up to they've streamed into my free Facebook community, which people are also welcome to join, but people can also sign up to my mailing list to get notified about them and get the replays, which is, it's useful to be on my mailing list, I think, because I do send out useful bits and pieces for people. So but yes, the website's probably a really good place to start.
Great. I will pop links to all of those different things that you just mentioned there on the show notes. So I like to start bringing to a close, and I always finish off with this question. You have shared so much already, but hopefully you'll have something to finish off with. If there was one thing that you think everyone would benefit from knowing, what would it be?
It would be that small counts. One moment, 1 minute counts.
And that is so simple. And I couldn't agree with you more. The smaller the better, quite often, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Laura. I have absolutely loved this conversation. I have no doubt there'll be people clicking through and signing up. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to episode 43 of the Live Fit Now podcast. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Laura as much as I did having it. There are wonderful resources that Laura has sent us the link through, so all you need to do is pop into the show notes, click through, and you can have access to them. We would both love to hear from you, so we have our social media links in the show notes too, and you can always email me directly, hello@livefitnow.co.uk. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and look forward to the next one. Please do remember to subscribe to the channel, whether you're on YouTube or your podcast listening platform, and I would greatly appreciate any feedback. And don't forget, you can review the podcast too. One of the most powerful ways you can help us is also through word of mouth. Tell your friends and family, perhaps of a favourite episode that you think they may benefit from listening to. You can also become a supporter of the podcast by heading to buymeacoffee.com/LiveFitNow to support the podcast going forward. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.